Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode and coming to us from various corners of the world, North America, Central and South America, Asia. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be spending another hour with you. And thank you for joining us on a day where we are thinking about the sacrifices made and the leadership shown by individuals. And what does that teach us in terms of what we want our life to be and how we shape our purpose and our leadership? So as we do that, let's take a step back and think about what is Goldilocks reminding us of and what does Goldilocks continues to teach us? To me, Goldilocks is not just a young girl who is part of a story. She is a young girl who knew her mind. She knew what she wanted and how to get it just right. If she was going to have a soup or a porridge, she wanted to make sure it wasn't too hot or too cold. If she was going to sit down or lay down on a surface, she had to make sure it was just right because it couldn't be too hard and it couldn't be too soft. Remember the time in our lives we knew what was just right and we knew exactly how to get it and how to convince everybody else around us to get it for us? Children are born into this world knowing that inherently and instinctively. Somewhere along the way, all the conditioning and the information and rules that are superimposed, we forget those things and we start living in a way that we think we're expected to live. What does that do for us? As we live a life, we need to live a life of purpose to feel fulfilled. And to live a life of purpose, we also need to be able to influence others so that we come together and fulfill our individual and our shared purpose. Goldilocks' ability to get it just right and come from that centeredness of not too hot, not too soft, not too hot, not too cold, is a reminder to us to find that centeredness for ourselves too. Research shows that we can each only influence 3 levels from where we are. So if I come at a particular issue from one of the 2 extreme ends, there are extreme ends and everything in between in any given issue, right? So whether we talk about public safety, whether we talk about COVID and COVID vaccine and wearing masks, right? Things don't have to be either extreme. We can find that right balance that is going to work for us, our community, and our society. And when I come from an extreme end saying it's do or die, my way or the highway, and I'm already at the extreme right end, I can only influence 3 levels towards the center. If I'm at the extreme left end, I still can only influence 3 levels towards the center. And keep in mind, towards the center is the operative word there. But what if I take the time and invest in relationships and get to know various aspects of that particular issue on a spectrum of extremes and everything else in between? And what if I come from that centeredness? I understand that where the limitations and boundaries are and what are the pros and cons. And then when I engage from that centeredness, I can influence 3 levels to my right, 3 levels to my left, and everybody else in that center lane. All of a sudden, the fact that I can only influence 3 levels from where I am has given me 7 degrees of influence. So if I'm truly going to be successful for me, even if I'm coming from the most selfish of places, it behooves me to come from the center so that I can maximize the impact in my own selfish reasons. But what if, as I'm doing this over and over again, and I realize, oh, I only win when other people win, And then little by little, my selfishness is replaced by my understanding of shared prosperity. And I realize that is the only way in the long term to sustain my purpose and sustain my prosperity. And this transformation is like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. How do I get there? And how is Goldilocks helping me take that journey of me being empowered by being centered and maximizing my degrees of impact so that my influence is geometrically increased, and therefore I am able to prosper and I am able to take other people along for the journey. And let's not forget, other people are going to take me along for the journey because I am creating win-win circumstances. As you think about your purpose, imagine your purpose being at an extreme end. Not possible, right? Our purpose has to be in the centeredness of what each of us love, what we are great at, and what the world needs. The intersection of those three is where purpose is. If only two of these are satisfied and the third is not, then it's not going to be sustainable. If I'm great at something and the world needs it, but I don't love it, at some point it is going to become a burden. It'll show in the attitude and the way I show up that this is not what I want to do. I'm going to alienate people in the process. I'm going to alienate the people who are on my team. I'm going to alienate the people who are benefiting from my service. So any one of these three you pick, if one is missing, the whole system collapses over the long haul. So even identifying and living my purpose has to come from that centeredness. And today we want to talk about centeredness from the perspective of public safety and living a harmonious life in society, honoring that public good. Building trust with our honor is what sets the stage for how we engage in society and how we are received in society. Trust is not given freely, trust is earned. And trust is truly earned with the way in which we show up, the honor in which we show up. Our word is our honor, our word is our bond. And when we give it, how are we gonna then earn that trust? And how are we translating that trust through a bond into a trusted relationship? Think about that, because that is something that we need to be able to master, both as public safety professionals and leaders, as well as members of the public living in the community who benefit from the public safety provided to us. But keeping in mind, we also have an obligation, a duty to contribute towards our collective safety. Like all leadership, leading society and being responsible for our public safety also requires us to bring kindness and professionalism, both, right? Professionalism without kindness or kindness without professionalism kind of tends to be tilted to the extremes and not centered. So imagine having an iron fist in a velvet glove where you combine your strength and your vulnerability. A leader knows to be vulnerable because our vulnerability allows us to be seen in our humanity. And therefore, we attract people who are willing to engage with us because they see us as fellow human beings. And the firm professionalism and the kindness is therefore a power combination. It becomes the superpower of a leader because they can combine both those extremes. Because sometimes people say, if you're professional, you can't be kind and compassionate. No, you can be both. Being a leader is very much like being a parent, right? Knowing where to set the boundaries and where to hold our kids accountable. At the same time, how do we share that compassion, kindness, as empathy to then help and guide and develop and create an environment conducive for sustainable growth? And as leaders of both the community and public safety, we also have the choice to be the catalyst for healing. The minute we come into this world in our chosen professions, there's already history. There is already baggage, right? Even when we get into a marriage, when we start a family, we're all bringing baggages. And committed relationships and thoughtful leaders know how to deal with that baggage and be a catalyst for healing, because lasting relationships and safe, secure environments, whether it's a household or a community, is built through healing. We all have a lot of healing to do. So life, we have to choose to live life in a way to notice those opportunities, and then just have the vulnerability and the courage to lean in and be the catalyst for healing. I wanted to set the stage for this so that I can invite my long-term friend. I truly believe we have a friendship. Joe and I have known each other for just over 10 years now. And he has been a remarkable leader and a barometer setter, as far as I am concerned, through my vantage point, in shaping public safety and public safety leadership. Somebody I learned from, somebody I talked to, somebody I have literally in this world grown up with in the sphere of public safety. Welcome to the episode, John.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have an opportunity to chit chat about this topic, and I'm sure others wherever it takes us.
Thank you, Joe. Joe is the division chief of Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue in Reno, Nevada, and he has been in the profession for 25 years. And he has invested both in education as well as serving community, so that he has grown as a contributing value-added leader in the profession and in society in a very balanced way. He truly embodies this Goldilocks balance we're talking about. And not only has he volunteered to serve in a profession that willingly runs into places the rest of us run out of, he actually has a beautiful wife who is his rock and two beautiful kids. So imagine you as a parent willing to run into danger while you know you have your family at home, right? It takes a lot to be able to do that day after day after day. So as we kick this off, and this is September 11th, I want to make sure I also take a moment to talk with Joe and honor the lives lost and the sacrifices made on this special day, this sad but important day. So as we get started, Joe, can you kind of share with us what took you in to the profession of public safety?
Yeah, I'm the quintessential childhood prodigy, if you will. From a very young age, all I could ever remember was my dad, and my dad was a fireman. And so I got to go to the firehouse and hang out with him and the guys. And I got to do a lot of really neat stuff. Times have changed, things that we wouldn't have our children take part in or be around in now, or, things that are busier. But yeah, I grew up around the firehouse. I grew up watching how the men and women just really embodied the core of community and service and helping each other out. They didn't just run into buildings and cut people out of cars. They were at the fundraisers. They were, hosting booths, trying to teach people safety and safe measures. And they were always looked to as, well, we don't know what to do, so let's call the firemen, and they'll help us figure it out. And so it didn't matter what the situation was in the town that I grew up in, as it's now grown into more of a city. And where I work now is people really do turn to those folks. So I was drawn to it. I thought that I was going to be a teacher at one point. I thought I might be a pilot. It just came naturally to me that when I got of age, that the draw was there, and the tractor beam set in, and here I am 25 years later.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, fireman, and in your role as a division chief, you are a teacher, right? I have been involved in this community for now 22 years, teaching public safety through Southern Illinois University. And in fact, you and I met at the National Fire Academy almost 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
we were there to hone in the skills to go back out and teach public safety leadership.
Yeah. You're right. I did get the best of both worlds there. I do get to teach. I've been able to teach and mentor the new hires and the young folks ever since I was able to kind of clear and cut my teeth. I just turned my attention to trying to help others. Yeah, you and I met 10 years ago, and the purpose of that was to talk exclusively about how the public safety can lead not only themselves, but across the boundaries and outside of the realm of responder, so that our city governments can benefit from it, and then our community as a whole on the outset. So, yeah, when we met, that was the topic of that conversation and that seminar that we were at. So it was a great time.
Yes, and a lot of things have happened since then. And as we honor the lives lost both on the civilian side and the public safety, I have had my own personal experience with 9/11, but what message do you have for both the leaders and the community of public safety, as well as the public themselves, as we honor the fallen lives?
Well, I'd say, the phrase out there is never forget. But another mentor of mine, wise person, by the name of Ron Coleman, retired fire chief and fire marshal in California, he kind of switched it for me a while back and said, always remember. Turn that into a positive. Let's always remember what happened. Let's always remember that, the folks that were doing their job that day, whether they were the firemen, the policemen, or the citizens, because to be quite honest, everyone else that perished is often overshadowed, especially by my profession. But the thousands of lives that were affected and are still affected today, those folks were doing their job and they were doing what's right. They turned to help each other, perfect strangers that you'd never met, and formed a unending bond because of it. You said in some of your writings that public safety show up when it matters, and even though we are the professionals that willingly sign up for this, others learn from us and look to us, and they show up when it matters too, to take care of each other, and to learn and not have those biases, and really just throw all that stuff out the window to do what's right for humanity and humankind. And I really would say that, as we, here we are 20 years later, I can't believe where the time has gone. Just always remember what happened after, in the moments after, in the days, the weeks, the months after. Remember what that was, and go back to doing what's right, because that's when we saw the best in humanity.
Absolutely. And it's very emotional for me in a lot of sense, because I was supposed to be on a flight to New York. And the only reason I didn't get on that flight and go there is because of insurance covenants. The CFO and CEO cannot be on a same flight to the same destination. Otherwise, the company's insurance for executives lapses immediately. So my boss left and my flight was rerouted. And I watched the towers come down. I lost 308 teammates. And in our case at Aon, the global risk management leaders were at a hotel across the street. And when they saw the planes go into the tower, they actually got out of the meeting and ran into the building to evacuate the team. And they evacuated the team and the entire leadership perished. The secretary stayed back to finish everything so that she had everybody's schedules updated. When they came back to work after this incident, life can go on. So every individual, every story was about them doing something for somebody else. And for me, the other unforgettable part is I was teaching Chicago Fire at that time, Chicago Fire Department. And I just finished teaching the weekend. My students knew I was on my way to New York. They called Ayan and wanted to know where was Professor Henry. And the company couldn't give out information.
Right.
And they kept saying, sorry, we can't share that, we can't share that. And so what my students did is they turned on the fire engine alarms and showed up at Ayan because they were right next door to the company building, right? And so the company receptionist called me and said, your students are here, what do you want me to do? I said, I'll come down, right? Because until then, they didn't tell me the students were calling. And they were like, okay, if your office was affected, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go? How can we help? And all of a sudden, they turned that into how do they help Aon with the logistics, right? And we were getting calls from the rubbles. How do we then direct the calls coming from the rubble towards the public safety professionals who are trying to rescue as many people as possible? And it took on a life of its own. And it showed how unexpected people, unexpected places, in unexpected circumstances. This happened in New York, right? But people were showing up in Chicago to figure out how to help and helping us logistically get things accomplished long distance. So talk about the fact that you don't even have to be physically in the same space to be a leader and shape that public safety in a way that it is meaningful and life affirming.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point. Leadership is often one of those pieces where people have this notion that it's someone out front or someone kind of behind, but they're always present. And when push comes to shove, really leadership, as we say at Ipsley, leadership comes from your heart. It's an internal motivator. As you lead yourself, as you said, they took care of business on their own end, and then they took care of trying to help and show others the way. While you impact, I say, lead yourself, lead others, and impact the world. And really, when you have those interactions one-on-one and you have those relationships built with people, it doesn't matter whether you're present or not. The Rolodex starts clicking. People remember who you are. They remember interactions that you had. They remember, words of wisdom. They remember the stories that are shared, so that they embody that and they start to take action where they are, whether you're there or not. Your story is a great example of what did happen 20 years ago. Everybody across this nation and even in the world really banded together to figure out, okay, how do we make this better? How do we do this? We see it even today on a routine basis, on smaller scales. We just had some massive fires come through our communities up here, and people from all across are trying to give their time, give their materials, give their goods, use their brain to do something to raise money if it is. And that's truly remarkable when you think about it from a leadership stance, that leadership is not something that we take lightly, and it's not something that we have to be present to do. We can reach out, and especially in today's ever-connected digital world, it's certainly something that makes it easier for us to lead across boundaries and across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Do good for people. Do what's right.
And that is such an important point, right? As leaders, then it is not about us, or are we getting that credit, or are we being visible, but what needs to get done to address the situation at hand, right? So being willing to be invisible and being that invisible hand is equally important. And so that brings up a whole different situation where in different parts of the world, the racial, gender, whatever labels we want to put on the externality of how we look and how we sound, creating a divide in the world of public safety. And one of the concerns I have is there is no public safety until every person in that public community is safe. When one is compromised, we're all compromised. How, and there is a clear distinction that I see in the way the fire department, firefighters and paramedics show up and the way they're received in the community versus how the police is. And it's not just in the United States, it's everywhere. I'm sitting here in Belize doing some work, and we have repeated situations where people who look alike, people from the same country, people who sound alike, and yet there is that police and civilian divide, and police can shoot because they have a gun. So how do we take that notion of public safety where it includes the police and the fire, and how do we bridge that divide so that kindness and compassion as part of leaders are there to create the climate for safety?
Well, I think that it is unfortunate that people have that divide. Um, you know, you said it. We look alike, we talk alike, we are alike, and to be honest, literally and figuratively, we are brothers and sisters. So there's even that split in families, right? That because someone is an enforcer, is the law enforcement community, there's that uneasiness and the notion that I'm going to be whacked, with a hammer. I'm going to be told that I did something wrong. I'm going to get a ticket, whatever it is. And nobody really likes that. That boils down to who you are as a being. Nobody really likes to or enjoys to be told, hey, you did something wrong, or hey, I'm holding you accountable. That's an uncomfortableness. So I would encourage people to rather than go directly to that divide and have this us versus them mentality, or yeah, we like the firemen because they come and fix our problems. You got to realize that that's actually what your law enforcement is trying to do too. They're trying to fix things. They really do want to be there for the betterment. A lot of agencies have done a lot of good trying to share the good that they do. Yes, they have to face things that are wrong and try and correct behaviors that are harmful to the public safety or harmful to others. They just do it in a little bit different way. So what I encourage people to do is something that I never really considered until recently is the ideology of being a beginner, of reaching out and learning and just educating yourself. You don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But if you embody the learner perspective and you always have this eye for, ooh, I'm curious, I want to know more, then that starts to break down your walls. That makes you vulnerable as a person, but at the same time, that vulnerability makes you stronger. And as you look at the divide, if we had more and more people that were more, as we could say, like a puppy, sniffing around, trying to learn what is this, what is new, and take that joy of learning that we had as children when it was, wow, this is really neat. Or, oh, I just really want to know more. That makes us stronger as healthy adults. It makes society stronger because we're not so siloed in our individual perspective. And when we get out of those silos and we start to learn more about other people's perspectives, and we learn more about the world around us, we're better informed and we're better for it.
And that's an important point for both sides of that divide, right?
Yep.
What has happened, and both sides need to be willing to wipe the slates clean and hit the reset button. Because one of my fears, and I grew up in a civil war where it was them against us, it was racially divided. And the Native minorities were being persecuted by the immigrant majority and literally being killed. And so creates a fight or flight mode. Some choose to fight, some choose to fly, because there is no winning for the losing there, right? And so as these situations come up, somebody has to be willing to say, you know what, things happened. You didn't do this to me. Maybe your father's generation did this to me. Let's start fresh, right? What allows people to draw that line and say, let's move forward, let's wipe the slate clean? And it requires forgiveness on one side and acceptance of the wrongdoing on the other side, right? And it could be on different situations in different sides of that fence. Where can we start that?
That's a tough question. You know, I think that's the $1 million question, $1 billion question, because I don't know an answer. That comes from your own internal heart, right? Um, People have to want to do those things, and unfortunately, that's hard. And humans are creatures of habit. Humans want to do what's easy, right? We want our routine. It's really simple to get up in the morning, walk over, make your cup of coffee, grab your toast or whatever it is, and go about your day and do what is known to you and what is comfortable to you. Um, I would say that, you know, much like being the beginner, I would say that people have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because to step out and be the one that says, you know what, bygones be bygones, let's move on, let's be better. That takes a strong person, and it takes, you know, when you do that, you know, the butterflies kick off in your stomach, and you're like, ooh, I don't know, because this is unexpected. You have to start getting comfortable being uncomfortable in order to lead that transition and that change, whether it's in a relationship, person to person, or it's in your family, in your schools, or in the broader community sense. That's a difficult thing, because you'll be ostracized, you'll be marginalized, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. But at the end of the day, um, my experience is everybody actually benefits from it, even though it was uncomfortable to begin with. So you really have to just get to that stage and step out. You got to know yourself, and you got to be okay with throwing it out there, and you know, having people come at you from the other side, even your own, right? If you're
Yes.
talking the left and the right, you will be kind of hung out there. But
Yes. And your
as
own
long as
side
you're
is going to come at you stronger than the other side. I mean, we know this.
exactly, and as long as you're resilient, and as long as you've got some tools behind you, you will start to build support, and at the end, um, everyone benefits.
Mhm. And I love how you said it. We have to learn to be comfortable in being uncomfortable. And that truly is a recipe for building a resilient life, to having viability, even in our own family life, right? So it is a life skill that we have to learn. It is a state of mind we have to be at peace with. And I really love that nugget of wisdom. And as we continue this conversation, I am going to open this up to see if any of our audience have any questions, thoughts, anything to add. Robin, go ahead.
You knew I'd jump in, right? Nice
Yes.
to be back. I missed the last few weeks. I always miss it when I miss your show.
Oh,
Thank
having
you
you back.
so,
Thank you, Ruben.
yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for your commentary. I really appreciate it, especially on a special day like today, a very meaningful day, especially today. And I really loved your comment about, you know, they were just not only the firemen and the policemen, but the people who went to the buildings on 9/11, they were just going to do their job. They're just going to work, I'm just doing my job. That's really powerful, and doing the right thing. And I loved what you also said about, you know, that leadership isn't just being the one in front, but that it comes from your heart, and you can lead yourself, and then you can lead in being of service and kind of doing the right thing anywhere you go. And also this ideology of being a beginner, that you're always learning, you can learn something new. So I really love what you shared there. A question I've had is, and it actually relates back to one of the first things you said, is, are the firemen spread too thin? I remember on another show, I said, well, you know, someone needs an ambulance and then 3 fire trucks show up. You know, why do we need a fire truck if someone needs an ambulance? And I think it was Cass who pointed out that in a municipality, you just have to use whatever resources are there. So I'm wondering if like the firemen are spread too thin, if there's too much in doing things that really, I guess this could apply to policemen as well. Are you being asked to do things, really too many things outside of your purview, which maybe dilutes your capacity to do what your really core assignment is? Or is it basically just, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but you just have to do what needs to be done in the moment?
Well, that's a really good question and a good point. You know, especially given our current climate with the pandemic globally. You know, we often joke in the firehouse that if you don't know what to do, you just call a fireman and they'll figure it out, because we get called for all kinds of strange things. The dispatcher on the other end of the line, all they can do is answer the phone and try and get you help. You know, and we become plumbers, we become repairmen, troubleshooters, all kinds of stuff. So to say that we're spread too thin, sometimes that does happen. But the shift in public safety, in the realm of public safety that has occurred over the decades, has become, rather than you call a fireman for a fire, you call a policeman for a law problem, you call the ambulance for an ambulance problem, you call a plumber for a plumbing problem. A lot of folks have just really turned to this public safety model of they respond for everything, because ultimately that's why we do the job we do. We want to make everyone's lives better. So if we see a car broken down on the side of the road, yeah, we want to help go change their tire, because that's what's in our heart. That's what we want to do. That's why we signed up for the job, is to help other people. So we'll help hunt for lost kids. We'll do all of those things. And so we're kind of our own worst enemy, because we're so willing to do whatever it takes to improve people's days, make them happy, and make things right in the world, and really lead by example for the community. That we get really busy and we get bogged down with stuff. So it takes a lot to stay trained to do the technical parts of our job, but the soft skills, we'll always drop what we're doing to do those softer things that aren't so technical. And you're right, we come in force. We do that on purpose because we want to make sure that we have the right tools for the job. And oftentimes you might see 6, 8, 10 firemen standing around, but usually there's a mixture of people coming up with a solution. I tell a story to the recruits of a time where I was on the side of an interstate cutting a car apart, and there was only 3 of us that could fit in this little tiny area that needed to get this woman out of her car. But there was 12 more guys behind us, and it probably looked odd to see a bunch of guys just standing around staring, but everyone behind us was offering opinions and ideas and thoughts, and we were jumping out and taking turns because it was so technical. It was just a real unfortunate circumstance. Fortunately, she basically walked away once we cut everything apart. But we come in force because that's what we want to do, and that's how we keep ourselves from being spread so thin, by having so many of us. Oddly enough, numbers are down across the nation for people who want to be in public service and public safety. So that's a battle we're fighting right now, is to find more people that want to do this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, if you're trained across multiple skills, it's almost like the safety net becomes broader and deeper if multiple departments are skilled in multiple areas for overlap. So that's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for the amazing question, and thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for that very insightful and story-based answer, because it gives everybody context. I think of police and fire almost like the mom and dad role. And I actually teach about this in the classroom, because fire is actually a femininity profession. It's about nurturing, life affirming, protecting. Those are femininity traits. We all embody masculinity and femininity in us. And fire is the femininity profession. Police is the masculinity profession. They have immediate outcomes and results, and they're enforcers. So at home, it doesn't matter who the head of the household is, what your culture is. When something goes wrong, what does everybody say? Mom, mom, right? Whatever happens in the house, mom is going to take care of it. So in the public safety world, that is the fire department, right? When we don't know what to do, we don't want to be told we did something wrong. We don't want to get a ticket. We don't want to get beat up, whatever the justification. But if mom comes, she will have a solution. She will figure it out. And then at the end of it, she's going to give me her love too, right? So to me, the femininity profession is the fire. And that's why we psychologically gravitate towards it. But the flip side is, because America, the United States, is a masculinity country, when it comes to budgets, we are very quick at approving the police department's budgets, but the fire department has to struggle to get their budgets approved, because we don't, unless it's happening in my household, I don't see the value of that nurturing. Like, I lived in the community of Huntley, and they decided to meet the budget numbers. They were going to have rolling shutdowns of one of the 3 firehouses. And then fire happened in a house, the train was on the tracks, the fire engine couldn't get across, and people end up dying. And you can't blame the fire department. The community voted to have a rolling shutdown instead of funding, right? Because we don't think, unless it happens to us, it could happen to us. And so multiple things to think about. Yes, we go to mom for everything, but then we also underpay and undervalue mom. And until mom is not there, we don't truly see her value. Same way, what do we need to do to proactively understand the value of that fire department and proactively fund it and make it viable, because the lives we're sustaining are our own. And I see a direct correlation, and I had to bring that up.
Yeah, you kind of triggered a few things in my mind there, and it doesn't matter whether we're paying our firemen or it's the volunteer fire company. There's most of the United States is volunteer when it comes to the fire companies, even though the paid guys usually get all the accolades. It's the volunteers too. And oftentimes, because you don't see the fire truck all day, it kind of sits there until it's needed. Like you said, it's only there until it's needed. Almost like an insurance policy. You may not think about your insurance until you're like, I really should have paid that, or I really need that right now, or I should have upped it to cover a little bit more. Whereas the forefront of law and order, that's at the front of everybody's mind, and you see those guys more and more. So, to bridge that gap, again, it goes back to educating yourself, learning more about what it is that happens in your community. More and more, you see folks that pull in their garage, close the door, go inside, and you never see them outside again. You have to know and keep the pulse of what's really going on in your community if you want to see the change, make the change happen.
And that is an excellent point, Joe. Thank you so much. And as we think of public safety and how we can truly create an environment of safety, it's not just physical danger, right? We are living in an age of a global pandemic. The pandemic create situations that are of public safety in nature. And when people have these massive situations triggered by COVID, they're calling the fire department, and the EMTs and the ambulances are coming. So your departments are actually in the thick of all of this. And you're wearing clothes that are not disposable, but you're also exposed to everything. So how are fire departments handling this?
Well, I'll tell you, it's difficult. We have our own internal struggles, each individual person, right? Just like the rest of the community, when you see the balance and the two sides of the story, and where everybody takes their position on things like masks and vaccinations and distancing, and we have the same issues internally. But at the end of the day, our guys gear up and go out and do the best they can and do the job that they're supposed to do. They do follow the rules, but we've done all kinds of stuff, from trying to, we upstaff. We go and help in a preventative measure at the health districts and the hospitals to try and educate folks. We've helped with vaccinations. We've helped with testing. And at the same time, what we've done in our own firehouses and our communities to try and, slow down the pandemic. It's to each their own, but we do try and abide by all those recommendations. The one thing that we've done a lot of, and you kind of touched on it, is make sure that we're taking care of the mental self, not just the physical, because where we're seeing the most impact is in the mental realm. It's our mental health and well-being, not just of our responders, but of the people that we're going to help. People are tired. People are worn out. Especially in the world of social media, when everything is at your fingertips, you can look at it. You can look at the same graph 10 times a day, hoping that it updates or changes, or you see the news story multiple times. We've really turned our focus onto the mental health and wellness of our responders and of our community, and trying to educate others that we're all human, and that one component, if it's not cared for, lends itself to even bigger disaster than what the health effect can be from a pandemic.
And all firefighters, people in the fire department, have families. So let's not forget, it's not just your mental health and psychological well-being. It is also the fears and terrors of the children and the spouses, right? Sometimes it's male spouses, sometimes it's female spouses, because men and women are inside the fire department.
Right.
How are you as a profession coping with it? And how can we as a community that benefits from your service be of service?
Well, how we're coping with it, like I said, we've spent a lot of time on the mental health and wellness piece. We've gone beyond just taking care of our own guys. Our services that we have to us, available to us in the stations, is also available to our families. And you're right, we recognize that it impacts the family unit. And it's beyond just the roof that's over my head. It's my entire family. Whether they live with me or they live across the street or in another city. I would say that the way the community can help is realize that, in your own bubble, if you're not a responder, if you're not someone that has seen this and dealt with this, just be patient. Be patient, because, tensions can be high, fatigue sets in, and you may not agree with what's going on, but know that we are just doing the job that we signed up to do. Be patient with us as we try and help you, and then again, go learn what you can, and reach out and support. I would say, the biggest thing is support your public safety folks by telling your elected officials to keep things funded, to work to keep things open and operating, because you never know when you're going to need the safety net. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Live today to its fullest, and live today to its fullest. Be patient, and be thankful. Support. That's the
Mhm.
biggest thing.
Yes, and coming from that place of kindness and compassion, as we started the conversation, and remembering we're all human, we're all trying to get our jobs done in a way that we can serve the best we know how. And also being forgiven. If something is looking like it's a slight mistake, then work together to fix it, because none of us are perfect and none of us can get everything right under stress, right? And to me, that is another important thing that everybody who are leading our own selves in order to live a meaningful life, we need to remember. And start with forgiving ourselves when we make a little mistake, not be too hard.
I would agree. Yeah. Mistakes happen. It's okay. And we learn from it and we grow. Um, and, hopefully, hopefully we can grow from it, and it becomes something you look back on as a moment that it may be anguish, but you're better for it.
So any final comment that you want to leave the audience with, some food for thought, a nugget for how we collectively grow and live in peace together?
Um, yeah, I think a lot of people look at public safety, whether it's police, fire, ambulance, and let's not forget our military folks that can be abroad doing the same jobs. They can actually be home doing the same jobs as the rest of us. They also have firefighters and law enforcement, and do a lot of stuff in the community, flood or disaster. But while the community looks to the public safety officials to bring order to chaos, know that everyone can lead with compassion and empathy, and everyone can show that to another human being to contribute to the greater success of our communities. It makes the job of being a public safety official easier when the community is behind you, and the community understands that we are better as a whole if we all treat each other with some empathy and friendliness and all of the things that come with it. Be humane to each other.
Yes, and that's something we teach our children. We just have to take that same lesson and turn it around for ourselves. Thank you so much for that very human and yet very, very relevant nugget to take us off the program and into what we need to do. Thank you so much, Joe, for spending the day with us. It has been a valuable hour. Appreciate you taking time, your personal time with your family, which is limited given your work schedule and 24-hour on, 24-hour off schedule you're on. So please thank the family for sharing you with us today.
I will. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always great to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know this is going to be a valuable conversation that folks from all over the world are going to listen to and take from and find a way to emulate and embody, regardless of what country, what culture we're from. It's a basic human need to want safety and security, and public safety is our shared responsibility. And you have helped us set the stage to not only have the conversation, but also start thinking about how do we bring about the change we need to. So thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for being open and sharing your thoughts and questions on the live chat, as well as asking here to include in the conversation. So everybody have a beautiful rest of the week. Be safe out there. Be mindful and kind to one another, and do something for somebody else, and you'll realize how much happier you're going to be, because lasting happiness comes from doing something for somebody else. If you have any thoughts, any questions, any suggestions, please feel free to email me at cass@casshenry.com. You know where to catch our old episodes and our future episodes on YouTube. Google Transform with Dr. Cass, and you should be able to catch the individual episodes. So take the wisdom shared by Joe today and take it into your day-to-day activities. And remember, when you engage with that kindness and that compassion, and you come from a place of leading yourself to influence others, you are going to find that you are able to transform lives as you engage in the community. And in that process, please don't forget to transform your own.